In the previous segment, we saw the central proposition of Vedanta, which is that you are already free. We said that it was because of the non-clarity of our mind or the ignorance of our mind that we superimpose this body and mind onto the self. We superimpose also the limitations and afflictions of this body and mind onto the self. And because of this error of adhyasa, we suffer. This is the cause of our suffering. Now in this segment, we will see why do we say that the body and mind are not self. To explain this concept, we have to first introduce two terms which are central in understanding Vedanta. These two terms are called Satya and Mithya. In one line, the definition of Satya and Mithya are: Satya means independent reality and Mithya means dependent reality. To understand the entire concept of Vedanta, we have to first understand the meaning of these two words. To illustrate the meaning of Satya and Mithya, we will take the example of a gold chain. Now, I have here with me this gold chain. If I ask you, what is this? What would you say? Well, some of you might say that this is chain. Right? Now, that's okay, that's fine, that's a good definition. If you say that this is chain, then you are perhaps looking at the shape of this object or the purpose of this object, that it is worn around the neck. And that's a good definition. But I can say something more about this object. I can say that this object is gold. Now, who is more correct? Chain or gold? If you say that both are correct, then that's not possible, because chain and gold are not synonyms. This is one object and it cannot be two things. So, one has to be more correct than the other. Vedanta tells us that when I say this is gold, then I am more correct than when you say this is chain. How is that so? Suppose that you say it's chain, so I'll tell you that okay, you can keep the chain and I will keep the gold. So now you will tell me that hey, that's not possible. The chain does not exist without the gold. So this is what Vedanta wants us to understand, that the chain does not exist without the gold. Gold is really what this object is. Gold was when the chain was not. Gold is when the chain is. And gold will be if I melt this chain, and then only the gold will remain. So gold is constant throughout, whereas chain is for the time being. And it could have been anything. It could have been a bangle, it could have been a ring, it could have been a bracelet. So in this respect, what Vedanta wants us to understand is that chain is just a name for a form which is mithya. It is a dependent reality. The chain is dependent upon the gold for its existence, whereas gold is independent of the chain. Gold is therefore called Satyam in this case. It does not depend upon the chain for its existence. We have to understand the term Mithya very clearly. Mithya does not mean illusion. It does not even mean non-real. Mithya is simply defined as dependent reality. In Sanskrit we call this Partantra. So Mithya means Partantra, whereas Satyam means Swatantra. So the gold in this case is the truth of this object. Now, to understand this even more clearly, I've written the word down. So this is generally, one would write the word gold chain. Here, when we say gold chain, what we have in mind is the chain. The chain is really the object for us, whereas gold is the attribute or the adjective. So here we see gold as the adjective or the attribute, whereas the chain we see as the substance or the object. Now, what Vedanta wants us to see is that gold is really the substance. As I said, gold was when the chain was not, gold is when the chain is, and gold will be if I melt the chain. So gold is invariable. If I write it like this, then gold is variable. Gold is a variable attribute of chain. Now what Vedanta wants us to see is, it wants us to reverse this and say it's the chained gold, really. Gold is really the substance, the invariable, permanent substance which this object is. Whereas it could have been anything. It could have been a bracelet, it could have been a ring, it could have been a bangle, as I said. So the chain is really the variable. If you look at the gold chain, or now that we've understood it's actually gold, the touch of the chain is the touch of the gold. The shine of the chain is the shine of the gold. The weight of the chain is the weight of the gold. Where is the chain? So that's how Vedanta wants us to see any object in this world. It wants us to understand the substantive truth of each and every object. When we say that I am this body and mind, what we are saying is that I am, the Satyam of me is body and mind. I am really the body and mind. Now, bring back the knowledge of Satyam and Mithya. Is the body and mind an independent reality or a dependent reality? This is what we have to find out. So, making it more specific now, we have to find out whether this body and mind is like the chain, a dependent reality, or like the gold, an independent invariable reality. In the next video, we will see how this body and mind are actually like the chain, dependent and variable.